All right, let's talk about a protocol that has been through an absolute trial by fire, and believe it or not, has come out way stronger on the other side. We're talking about PLAZM, and this is the final countdown to day 118. We're going to break down the complete transformation, so let's dive right in.
Okay, but before we jump in, you know the drill. This is all for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not financial advice.
12. That's it. That's the magic number right now. Just 12 days.
Yep, that's how much time is left on the clock until day 118, the day the PLAZM protocol finally normalizes. Now, for the last 22 days, this thing has been in a seriously high-pressure stress test. So today, we're going to unpack the absolutely incredible transformation that's happened during that time. So here's what's on deck. We'll kick things off with the final countdown. Then we'll dive into how supply got locked down with burns and staking. After that, we'll look at the huge shift from liquid to protected supply, see how the vault actually grew under pressure, and then we'll get to the big one, the complete success scorecard. And to wrap it all up, we'll peek into the future, beyond day 118.
All right, first up, the final 12-day countdown. And look, day 118 isn't just some random date on the calendar. It's a huge deal. It marks the official end of the stress test and a massive, fundamental change in how the whole protocol works.
And this right here shows you exactly why it's so critical. Right now, we're seeing almost 244,000 PLAZM released every single day. That's part of the stress test. But after day 118, whoa, that number absolutely plummets to about 84,000. That is a gigantic reduction in daily pressure. Think about it, the protocol has been soaking up these high emissions for weeks. These final 12 days, it's like the last leg of a marathon. So you've got to be wondering, how in the world did the protocol handle all that pressure? Well, the first part of the answer is pretty amazing. It's all about actively locking up and, well, destroying supply. Let's start with the burns.
Okay, check this out, because the scale of this change is just wild. On day 84, a tiny 3% of the supply was burned. Fast forward just 22 days to day 106, and that number has exploded to 13%. We're talking about going from a tiny little fraction to more than 1 out of every 8 tokens, just poof, gone forever.
Let that sink in. A 456% increase in total burned tokens. Over 500,000 plasmor were just wiped from existence. And this all happened during what was supposed to be the hardest period for the protocol. So yeah, this wasn't just about surviving. This was the protocol going on the offensive, actively shrinking its own supply. That is a seriously powerful signal.
Now let's look at the other side of that coin, staking. On day 84, we were at about 1.24 million PLAZM staked. That was roughly 31% of the supply. By day 106, though, that number grew to over 2 million PLAZM staked, pushing the total to 36% of the supply.
And that 2 million number? That's a huge milestone. It's a massive vote of confidence from the community. See, burns are kind of automatic, right? They're part of the mechanics. But staking? That's a conscious choice. That's people deciding to lock up their tokens because they believe in the long-term vision. And that conviction? It grew by over 63% in just 22 days. Incredible.
So when you add all this up, the massive burns, the incredible growth in staking, what you get is this fundamental rebalancing of the entire protocol. We're talking about a huge shift away from liquid supply, the stuff that can be easily sold, over to protected supply, which is locked up and shows a real long-term commitment.
And here's what that looks like. This is the new reality. On day 84, things were basically split down the middle, 50-50, liquid versus protected. But look at this now. By day 106, that picture has been completely flipped on its head. Now almost 3/4, 73% of the entire supply is protected. That leaves only 27% is liquid. The amount of supply that can even be sold has just been squeezed down dramatically.
So you might be asking, where did that huge 23-point swing actually come from? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was a team effort. The burns did the heavy lifting, accounting for 10 percentage points of that shift. Then you had the deepening liquidity pools, the LP, that added another 8 points. And finally, the staking growth we just talked about chipped in another 5 points. It was literally a success on every single front.
Okay, but what about the treasury? The protocol's financial engine. How did it hold up during the stress test? Did it just kind of hang on for dear life, or did it actually get stronger?
Well, the data doesn't lie. The vault didn't just survive, it thrived. Its value grew by 31%, going from just under $400,000 to over $500,000. At the same time, the number of bonds, which are the vault's assets, grew by more than 1,300.
This is the very definition of an anti-fragile system. It's a design that doesn't just resist pressure, it actually gets stronger because of it.
All right, we've broken down all the individual pieces. Now it's time to put it all together. Let's look at the complete picture, the full, undeniable 22-day transformation scorecard.
Just look at this, a sea of green check marks. Every single core metric improved. I mean, we have to call out a few of these. Burns are up an insane 456%. The liquidity in the LPs more than doubled, up 112%. It's an absolutely dominant performance top to bottom.
The conclusion here is pretty simple, isn't it? 9 out of 9 metrics improved, and they did it during the most intense, high-pressure period imaginable. The stress test was an absolute, undeniable success.
So, with the stress test basically in the rearview mirror and only 12 days of those high emissions left, it's time to change our perspective. We're shifting from defense to offense, from just proving the system works to growing it.
Which, of course, leads to the big question. What actually comes after the countdown? What happens on day 119 and beyond?
The answer is a complete phase shift. The protocol has earned the right to graduate. It's moving out of what we can call proving mode, where it had to prove its design could survive, and it's now entering sustainable growth mode. The focus can finally shift from surviving to building on this incredibly powerful foundation.
22 days. Every metric improved. Burns from 3 to 13%, staking from 1.24 to 2 million, liquid from 50 to 27%. Protected from 50 to 73%, vault from 398 to 520. 12 days remain. The stress test is nearly complete. The protocol proved its design. Day 118 isn't the end, it's the beginning of sustainable growth.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into PLAZM's transformation. Just as a final reminder, this is not financial advice. You should never invest more than you can afford to lose, and always, always do your own research before making any financial decisions. Thanks for watching.